As a federal judge weighs the outcome of whether or not to overturn Illinois' gun and magazine ban after a hearing yesterday, I want to get your predictions at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. And again, call in live and local, 217-629-7970. And listen, I know a lot of people are not listening necessarily local, even though this is a big time for people driving to work. So call in safely. All right, I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. But there are people listening all across the state. I had somebody call during a break, talk about enjoying my coverage being balanced and giving both sides of these issues in my presentation here. So I appreciate that is at least acknowledged. Because listen, I mean, there's a lot of hurdles that a lot of walls that I want to run up against and trying to get information or trying to talk to both sides for whatever reason. One side wants to talk all the time. The other one doesn't really necessarily want to have certain questions asked. I don't get it. But either way, appreciate people recognizing the balanced approach I try to take here on the radio with my coverage of what goes on day in, day out. The gun issue is one of them. Last hour went through a lot of what was heard yesterday in federal court. It even got the reaction, and I did approach the state to get their take after the hearing, but the state's defense attorneys, they declined to comment. But I want to hear from you now, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. And in particular, what do you think the outcome's going to be here? Because yesterday you had the federal judge, Stephen McGlynn, he laid out, he's not made his mind up on this as to whether to overturn Illinois' gun ban. But the questions he had for the plaintiffs focused on, the difference between a machine gun, why are those banned, but semi-automatics can't be banned. The plaintiffs say, hey, these are common use guns. The new standard from the U.S. Supreme Court is that you cannot ban common use guns. That's the argument they're using. The state came back and they laid out a whole bunch of defense for the law, saying it's the fact that they are so common, that they're proliferated throughout society and people have easier access to. And that's leading to mass shootings, and a lot of people hear that as a balancing of interest approach. But the judge, with his questions, and if you followed me on Twitter yesterday, you got to see a lot of this. It wasn't necessarily a direct transcript. It was the best I could do, typing furiously on a laptop before that battery died, and then switching to my phone to tweet out the best I could what was being said. But the judge really had some pointed questions for the state, which was saying, hey, the state is self-governing. People voted for Democrats. They wanted this policy. They passed it. But people pushing back on that, saying it's not how it works. You can't violate the Constitution by popular vote. You have to amend the Constitution, which is a much more laborious process. But regardless, the judge took it under advisement after saying that from where he sits, he doesn't just look at the gun, he looks at the perpetrators of this violence, in particular young kids, he says. What kind of medicines are they on? What are the other red flags? So maybe that's an indication of how this is going to go. That was an indication for a couple of the plaintiffs groups that we heard from earlier in the show. But just to kind of reiterate, here is Todd Vandermeide talking in particular about his predictions of where this is ultimately going to end up moving forward. Here's Todd Vandermeide from yesterday.
I think it went well. I think that unlike what we've seen in a couple of the other cases, you have a judge who understands firearms. I think his questions showed that he understands the nuances of this.
Thomas Magg, the attorney that first brought the state-level case that was transferred to federal courts, he was also there defending their position as plaintiffs wanting to overturn the gun ban. And Magg, he shared that the judge seems to be very knowledgeable and moving forward with this case. And here's some of what he had to say in reaction.
These arms are all in common use. AR-15s are in common use. Over 15-round magazines. I can't think of a modern firearm that doesn't use it in excess of 15-round magazine.
So I want to hear from you. The plaintiffs feel confident that they're going to have this law overturned in the federal courts. And what happens after that? It's going to be appealed to the appellate court up in Chicago, where you got a panel of judges that'll overview the arguments and make a decision. And then whatever happens there could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But if federal judge Stephen McGlynn sides with the plaintiffs in this case, it means that the law will be overturned Will the state ask for an immediate stay on appeal to revise restore the law? Who knows? But we have yet to hear what the judge is going to do in this. We'll be watching closely as we have been each and every morning, but I'd love to get your thoughts at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Greg, way out of my lane here, buddy. I don't know gun usage. So common, what do they say, common use guns?
Common use, meaning commonly held by law-abiding citizens. They said there's like 6 million plus across the country. You've got 2.4 million gun owners in Illinois. I don't know how many of those have ARs, for instance. But real quick, also there's a lot of these magazines proliferated all over the place that are considered banned. So that's the argument, is these are already in common use and cannot be banned.
Gotcha. Okay. I was taking common use as in there's a use for them, as in, the shotgun for deer hunting, so on and so forth. That's what I was going to ask, what's the common use for an AR-15? Because you can't hunt with them, so I've been told. That's true, right?
What does the Second Amendment have to do with hunting?
Sure. No, I'm not having that debate with you. I'm just, what is the use of an AR besides kill people? That's all I'm asking.
Sports, target shooting,
sure.
A whole host of things. You can tinker with it. It's a pretty neat machine, actually, when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it.
Would you believe I have fired one? And you're right, it is damn fun. But yeah, I just know you can't hunt with them, so I was wondering why they weren't going to take that side of it.
It depends on where you're at. It depends on where you're at as to whether you can hunt with them. Because it's not like you can go deer hunting with an AR-15 necessarily. You got to look at the hunting regulations, and I don't know all the hunting regulations. All right. One thing that was interesting though was Stephen McGlynn, the judge. He gave several scenarios talking about a tall man, a short wife, and collapsible stocks for AR-15s. Why can't they have that just for the tall person and the short person? Something else he said was, what about this scenario to the state when the state was defending their case yesterday? He said, and we'll get to all your calls, I promise here. I'm going to just line them up real quick, so stay with me. We'll get to all your calls before the break, I promise. But one of the scenarios he set up was, all right, say a husband takes the wife and kids out to, shoot some guns, and they all try out the shotgun, but they don't like the shotgun because it's too much recoil. And they shoot an AR-15, and they're like, wow, that's actually a very comfortable rifle to shoot, and therefore they're more comfortable using that in a situation where they may have to use it. So it was interesting to hear some of the judge's comments. What are your predictions as to how this law is going to go? Is it going to be overturned by the judge? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Are you talking to me?
Hey, I'm talking to you. You talking to me?
Okay. Yeah, I am. I didn't know if I was the caller in queue or not. Hey, I just want to answer that last telephone caller's question about you can't use it for hunting. Well, I use it for hunting. I went hunting wild boar, and it's a perfect weapon for killing wild boar.
And that was my first thought was I know that in some jurisdictions you can do that. You can, I think I've seen like, was it Ted Nugent? Gets into a helicopter and goes and takes out wild boar with an AR-15 because the wild boar are like devastating various natural resources. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hello. Yeah, I think following Vandermite's a pretty good idea. He knows what he's doing and gets the whole system. So hearing that the judge knew what was going on about guns, or at least was knowledgeable, is a good thing. But yeah, when it comes to hunting and the ARs, I mean, coyote hunting, I mean, they use ARs for a variety of different hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
You got me this time?
I got you this time. What's up?
All right. Hey, man, appreciate you. Hey, I got my hopes up that it will be overturned, but I'm kind of with that last caller that, somebody's already said a couple things that I was going to say is if you looked at my AR, you wouldn't look at it as a mass killing. It looks like a hunting rifle. It's got a scope on it with, it's a varmint gun. That's what it's used for, is I hunt varmints with it. So it doesn't look anything like, you know what I mean? It doesn't look anything like what people.
Yeah, the characterization with a grenade launcher on it and a bayonet and a whole host of other. It's a varmint rifle. I appreciate that. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, the AR, I mean, you got to think of all the different size of people that shoot that gun that are trained with it when they're in the military. You have big guys, little guys, women.
Well, they use M16s in the military, but
people. But it's very similar. But the other nice thing about the AR, you can get additional bolts and replace the bolt in it and fire 22s through it.
Sure.
And when you fire a small 22 round through it, I mean, you're shooting coyotes or whatever, but that 5.76 round, when you're hunting boars, you got to kind of shoot them in the head, and their skulls are so thick that you need a round like that to put them down, and they are horrible beasts when they're down in the ranges of Texas and Oklahoma and down towards the south and
devastating.
Those type of areas.
Yeah, just absolutely devastating. Yeah, I appreciate the call. Take a few more if we've got time. Good morning. Make it quick, please. You're on the air.
One caller said that there wasn't any use for AR other than to shoot people. Well, number one, you can hunt in Illinois with that AR. You can hunt coyotes with them, and that is like the number one preferred rifle for hunting coyotes. Number two, the AR-15 was put on the market in 1964, and we didn't have any problems until in the last 20 years. And I would argue it's a societal breakdown. It has nothing to do with the rifle. We didn't have any problems with those rifles prior to that.
I appreciate the call. And take one more. It's all the time I've got. I appreciate everybody calling in. Good morning. If you can make it quick, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in Illinois, actually, it is legal to hunt with an AR-style rifle here this year. You just have to limit it to a single shot, which is easy enough to do.
I don't know what's going on with your phone, brother, but it is jumping. It's jumping all over the place. So it's sad that was the last call because I was appreciating what you had to say. Got to take a break, guys. Appreciate everybody.